So it all comes down to two outcomes. One, you lean in to the difficulty of taking action. Or two, you live with the difficulty of regret. Seems like just about every difficult decision boils down to a choice between these two options: the difficulty of the action or the difficulty of living with the regret. Taking action feels uncomfortable and it requires effort, but it leads to growth, it helps us to build resilience, and most important of all, it lends to a sense of fulfillment. On the other hand, avoiding to take action may feel easier in the moment, but that regret compounds over time, becoming heavier and irreversible. Today we'll explore why taking action, despite its immediate challenges, is the only rational strategy for long-term well-being. In order to better help frame it in your mind, imagine as if you came up to a fork in the road. One path leads to a steep incline, filled with all sorts of obstacles that will require your diligence in order to navigate, but ultimately lead to a beautiful view, while the other path is easy, but only circles back to where you started. If you're anything like me, and you're interested in putting your best foot forward to making the most of your finite time in an effort to be as efficient as possible in order to maximize your chance of bringing your vision into reality, then I'm sure that there'll be one or two applicable takeaways that we'll be able to apply to whatever it is that we're doing. If you don't know, my name is Chad Joshua, and I'm working towards building a 100-song catalog. I write songs about populism and freedom and liberty, and I use this channel as my artist channel in order to promote those songs. In my free time, I like to have these discussions about all of the strategies that we may be able to use in order to better focus our efforts towards the things we're trying to accomplish. So what about you? What is the big challenge that you're faced with and left with having to make a decision about whether you're going to get to it or you're going to remain sitting on your laurels? What's one challenge you faced that felt overwhelming but left you stronger once you pushed through it? The thing about taking action and taking it consistently is that you're going to trend in one way or another. And if it is that you decide to lean into the idea of getting after it, then it's only natural that you're going to become more resolved to the task. And then in turn, taking on each of the challenges that come along, you'll be forced to have to hone your problem-solving skills. And all of that stacks upon itself. One obstacle after another teaches you, each after the next, the method and the manner in which problems are navigated. And that's what is priceless about it. That is the takeaway. That is the tool that you put in the tool belt. It's that particular knowing that you have the capacity to solve problems in that you have been doing it. And in addition to just that basic level of confidence that comes from repeatedly proving yourself in tasks, come all of the different skills that are required from each of the unique problems that you have to solve. So whether you're a builder without the precise part and you have to quickly think on your feet in order to adapt something that you do have as a workable solution in order to tie up the job, or you're a burgeoning media specialist who has to wear 10 different hats, and in doing so is required to have a general knowledge of more topics than you care to. Every action teaches something new, and it builds on your competency and your sense of it. And that lends right to your self-esteem. Success, even in small wins, reinforces your belief in your abilities. And most importantly, a belief in your perseverance, regardless of your abilities. You know you're going to stick it out. You know you'll figure it out, even if you're slow. Because it really boils down to gumption and go being the most prized of all of the attributes. And it is important to remember that whilst reoccurring, discomfort is temporary, but it often yields immediate progress and fulfillment. And who doesn't want that? All of that discomfort leads to rewards that regret never can. It's a lot like weightlifting in that the resistance feels painful in the moment, but it's what builds the strength. So what's one current goal or decision that you have in front of you where discomfort might actually lead to your growth? Tell me about it below. So then if you don't ever demand yourself to take an action and you give over to putting your money on dealing with the regret, how do you suppose that you'll look back over all the missed opportunities wishing that you'd had acted on them? How do you think that the burden of that is going to feel on an everyday basis until you die out? Missed opportunities accumulate and they create a ripple effect of loss. you're isolated to that. And it leads to a sense of helplessness as your chances diminish and you're forced to reckon with the reality of what you've done, which is nothing. Then in comes the self-doubt and maybe the self-loathing, which I'm not sure which one's worse, both of which will only make it harder for you to take any action moving into the future. The weight of the regret, it doesn't fade. It only grows heavier with time. So how strong are you for carrying that kind of weight? It isn't just that it's irreversible, it also has a snowballing effect, compounding itself, making it far more difficult to sustain than the temporary discomfort of action. And as that snowball rolls down the hill, all it does is collect and grow, leaving you with the distinct pleasure of being responsible to carry its weight until you die out. How might acting now help you to mitigate it, help you to realign yourself in order to not have the regret compound any further? You know, for me, I let all kinds of things come along and interfere with me getting started, and all sorts of ideas about being organized and needing everything to be perfect before I started. And now I'm standing here at the ripe old age of all but too old, faced with the Herculean task of having to lift the entirety of all of my stupid in order to salvage an outcome that I will be able to swallow when I am in my death throes. So if you're anything like me, you know exactly what it's like to be a little bit of your own worst enemy. And if it is that you're anything like me, then you are entirely and all done with that. If you're just getting started and you're looking to this old man for a couple of important insights, then you know what you need to do, because you know that I'm standing here on this wall today exactly for the purpose of being your friend, because I didn't have one when I was sitting where you are. So ask yourself, really, on the occasions where you have given yourself permission to take bold actions, what was the payoff for you? How did that resonate with you? And how was all of that compared to whenever you did anything but that? Whenever you put off the task and you didn't get to something? Because that self-assessment, that will inform you exactly in the way that you need informed about how it is that you need to proceed. Action, it reinforces self-efficacy, proving you can influence your outcomes. By taking action, you nurture your values. You create for yourself a sense of integrity and purposefulness. The inaction fosters cognitive dissonance because it clashes with your values, and it leads to a distorted self-perception, and it makes you feel stuck and incapable. Taking action creates a positive feedback loop of confidence and alignment, while avoidance traps you in a cycle of stagnation and regret. Action is your compass. It doesn't mean that the journey will be easy, but it does align you with your true north. So what is something today that you can do to align your actions with your values? And when you weigh the outcomes of action versus inaction, which path feels lighter over time? Regrets leave unresolved what-ifs and emotional weight. They reduce your sense of agency, and they make future challenges feel even harder. But taking action produces tangible results, whether they're external achievements or internal growth. And while the outcome of action may not always be perfect, it does lend to closure and progress. And that is unlike the endless burden of regret. You know, taking action is like planting a tree. You may not see the fruit right now, but eventually that tree will fruit. Never planting the tree means no fruit ever. What opportunity do you have in front of you right now that may feel hard, but could lead to tangible reward? You know, the other thing that comes from regret is the shame of having to face it. And so if it is that you choose the path, then your new difficult choice to make is whether you own the mistakes by facing the regret, or whether you end up making excuses in a delusional attempt to avoid having to recognize failings. You know, some people make that choice and they go as far as to build an entire false reality and narrative around all of the reasons why they are where they are, because they had practiced a consistent effort of not being accountable at any point in their trajectory. So at the very end, when they have to face their mistakes, they yet again choose the easy way out and the least honorable way out by just opting into denial. So it isn't something that you even want to flirt with, not even for a minute. There isn't any value. So I'm sure that you know exactly what it is that I'm saying, and you know exactly what it is that needs to be done. And in the meantime, before you get to all of that, if you haven't heard my new song, you can listen to it here. You keep your head up, and I'm going to keep mine up. And we'll talk again soon.